Gentlemen, if you've been feeling like something's off in your relationship, you're not imagining it. The truth is, many women hide their lies so well, it's almost impossible to catch them, unless you know the signs. In today's video, I'm revealing the 6 methods to expose her lies and catch a cheating wife before she gets away with it. From inconsistencies in her stories to the subtle changes in her behavior, these clues will help you see the truth. Make sure you subscribe, hit like, and drop your city in the comments. Where are you tuning in from? Let's dive in. Method 1. Watch for sudden changes in her schedule. One of the clearest signs that something is off is when there's a sudden and unexplained shift in her routine. Maybe it starts with a few late nights, then becomes frequent weekend getaways or work trips, with little to no explanation. These changes often happen with no regard for the established flow of your life together, and the timing of them can feel strangely convenient, always when you're least likely to question her absence. Take Robert, 60, who began to notice that his wife was suddenly working late at least 3 times a week, despite no real change in her job schedule. At first, he shrugged it off. After all, they had been married for years, and maybe she had new projects piling up at the office. But after a while, things started to feel a little too calculated. Her late nights stretched into weekends, and she would come home late, only to offer vague explanations like, "Just some extra work I had to finish." But Robert knew his wife's schedule well. She was a creature of habit, and this was unlike her. Soon, the extra work excuse became the default whenever Robert asked about her time. She was unavailable for dinner, no longer interested in the weekend activities they used to enjoy together. And when she did come home, it was always after a late night, her clothes looking slightly off, or her demeanor a little too perfect for someone who had just spent hours working at the office. It felt like she was performing a routine that didn't involve him. And that's when Robert's suspicions grew. Here's the key. These sudden schedule changes aren't random. They're usually planned to cover up her absence or to spend time with someone else. It's not just about the late nights or the weekend trips. The core of this behavior is the emotional and physical distance that's starting to form. She's no longer investing in your relationship, and her time is now allocated to someone or something else. The excuse of work is just a cover-up, a shield to prevent you from digging deeper. She doesn't want to feel guilty, so she gives you something safe to cling to. But what happens when you start digging into her schedule and really start asking questions? The next method she uses to cover her tracks gets much trickier, and it will leave you questioning every word she says. Stay tuned. Method 2. Check for inconsistent stories and details. The more she lies, the more likely she is to slip up. One of the best ways to catch her in the act is to listen closely to the details of her stories. If you've ever felt like her explanations just don't quite line up, you might be onto something. When a woman is hiding an affair, her stories tend to shift and change over time. The smallest inconsistencies can reveal the truth hiding underneath her lies. Take Mike, 62, who began to notice that the details of his wife's girls' nights seemed to shift every time she told him about them. One weekend, she said she went to dinner at a local restaurant with friends. The next time, the location changed, and the people involved were different. Her description of what happened was never the same twice. At first, Mike thought it was just forgetfulness or the confusion of juggling too many things in her life. But as the inconsistencies grew, it became clear that something was amiss. The more he pressed for details, the more things didn't add up. This is how it works. A woman who is lying to cover an affair can't keep track of the details. She'll tell you one story, and when she has to repeat it later, she either forgets or accidentally changes a detail, usually one that's crucial. The inconsistency isn't always glaring, but it's the pattern of subtle changes that starts to build doubt, and eventually, the truth begins to seep through. For example, she might tell you she was at a friend's house on Friday, but the next time you ask, The same friend suddenly lives in a different neighborhood. Or maybe she talks about going to the gym, but you notice her clothes don't match what she described. If the story keeps changing, you're not dealing with a coincidence. You're dealing with an attempt to cover something up. Another red flag is when she gives overly detailed or vague explanations to avoid being caught. Have you ever asked her where she was, and she suddenly gives you a way more detailed answer than necessary? It's almost like she's trying too hard to convince you, offering up everything she can think of just to cover her tracks. But here's the catch. Inconsistencies in her stories are only the beginning. The next trick she'll use to cover her tracks is even more sophisticated, and it could throw you off completely. Stick around, because the next sign will take you deeper into the web of lies she's weaving. Method 3. Track her digital footprint. In today's world, where everyone is glued to their phones, her digital activity can be one of the most revealing places to look for signs of deceit. If she's hiding something, she'll go to great lengths to keep her phone or computer under wraps. But here's the thing. Her digital footprint can't be erased completely. All you need to do is pay attention to the small clues she leaves behind. Take Dave, 58, who started to notice that his wife was always texting, but she'd never leave her phone unattended anymore. It wasn't that she was doing anything particularly wrong, but the secrecy felt strange. He'd never been the type to invade her privacy, but the subtle signs were undeniable. Then one day, he checked the phone bill and found numerous late-night text messages and phone calls to a number he didn't recognize. When Dave confronted her, she brushed it off. "It's just a friend from work," she claimed. Yet the frequency of the texts, especially at late hours, didn't fit the narrative. When he asked to see her phone, she gave a quick excuse and locked it away. It became clear. She was hiding something. Here's the truth. When someone is having an affair, especially in the digital age, it's almost impossible to keep everything hidden. Text messages, emails, social media, and even location data can all reveal hidden truths. If she's constantly hiding her phone, deleting text conversations, or blocking certain contacts, it's not just a privacy issue. It's a sign she's trying to keep something from you. But don't stop there. Look at her social media behavior too. If she's suddenly more active online, but refuses to share what she's posting or who's commenting, that's another red flag. You might notice she's liking posts from someone you don't know, or there are messages from someone she hasn't mentioned. A secret social media account, especially one she hasn't told you about, can be a clear indicator that there's more going on than she's letting on. Now, don't get me wrong. Checking her digital activity doesn't automatically mean she's cheating, but if you're noticing secrecy and inconsistencies, it's time to dig a little deeper. If you find yourself digging through phone bills or wondering why her social media accounts are locked down, you're already looking at the signs. And guess what? There's one more digital trick she could be using to stay under the radar. What happens next? It's more covert and even harder to detect. Keep watching to find out. Method 4. Notice the emotional withdrawal and coldness. One of the most painful signs that something is off is when the emotional connection you once had starts to fade. It's subtle at first. Little moments where she doesn't react the way she used to, or where she becomes emotionally distant and detached. At first, you might chalk it up to stress, work, or even the inevitable ups and downs of a long-term relationship. But when it becomes a regular occurrence, you can't help but wonder, is something deeper going on? Take Greg, 60, who had been married for over 30 years. For years, his wife was his rock, warm, affectionate, and always there when he needed to talk. But over the past few months, he started noticing something wasn't right. Whenever he tried to share something important with her, she seemed distracted, uninterested, or just too tired to care. "Not tonight, Greg. I'm just exhausted," she would say, brushing off any attempt to connect emotionally. It wasn't just the physical distance. It was the emotional distance that was hurting the most. Greg tried to fix things by talking more, trying to engage her in meaningful conversations, but it didn't work. The harder he tried to connect, the colder she became. She'd tell him everything was fine, but he could feel it. Something was missing. She wasn't listening to him the way she used to, and when they did talk, her responses were short and uninterested. This emotional withdrawal is one of the clearest signs of guilt. When a woman starts to emotionally disengage, it's often because she's already invested her feelings elsewhere. Whether it's an emotional affair or something deeper, her heart is no longer in the relationship. She's checked out, and every attempt to reach her seems futile. The more she pulls away, the more desperate you might feel to fix things, not realizing that the problem isn't something you can fix. It's a problem that's been created by her. The painful truth is that this emotional distance is a defense mechanism. She's distancing herself from you to avoid confronting her own guilt. By pulling away emotionally, she can keep you at arm's length, making it easier to hide the truth of what's really going on. But here's the kicker. Emotional withdrawal isn't just about her shutting you out. It's part of a larger strategy to keep you in the dark. What's happening behind the scenes will shock you. Stay tuned to uncover the next sign of what she's hiding. Method 5. Pay attention to her defensiveness and guilt-triggered anger. Have you ever noticed how she reacts when you bring up your concerns? Maybe you've asked a simple question, but instead of a calm answer, she gets defensive, angry, or even accuses you of doing something wrong. This is one of the most insidious tactics used to deflect suspicion and protect her secret. If she's cheating, her anger is often a cover for guilt, an emotional smokescreen to keep you from digging deeper into the truth. Let's look at Jason, 55, who noticed his wife becoming more combative every time he asked about her behavior. For months, she had been acting distant, always too busy to spend time with him, or snapping at him when he suggested they go out for dinner. One evening, he finally confronted her, asking if everything was okay. Instead of a simple answer, she immediately shut him down. "Why are you always looking for something to be wrong? You're paranoid." Then, without warning, she turned the tables. "Maybe you should focus on your own behavior first. You're never home, always distracted by work." Jason was left confused and hurt. He was simply trying to connect with her, but now he was the one on the defensive. Over the next few weeks, whenever he brought up the subject of their relationship or questioned her late nights, she would explode in anger. She'd accuse him of being controlling or jealous. The more he pushed, the more she blamed him. And that's when Jason realized her anger wasn't about his behavior, it was about hers. This defensive, guilt-triggered anger is a classic reaction when someone is trying to cover their tracks. When a woman is cheating, she knows that if you get too close to the truth, her secret might be exposed. So, instead of addressing the issue directly, she deflects by attacking you. By accusing you of being paranoid, overbearing, or untrusting, she's hoping to redirect your focus away from the real problem. The more she puts the blame on you, the less likely you are to keep asking questions. This behavior is not just a defense mechanism, it's a calculated move to shift the focus from her guilt to your supposed fault. The more she can convince you that you are the problem, the less likely you are to uncover what she's truly hiding. But here's the shocking part. This isn't just about deflecting blame. It's part of a much bigger emotional manipulation that she's using to protect herself. What happens next will reveal how far she'll go to keep her secrets safe. Stay with me. There's more to uncover. Method 6. Use her body language to your advantage. When it comes to detecting deception, words are just part of the equation. One of the most powerful tools you have in your arsenal is her body language. While she might try to hide her guilt with words, her body will often reveal what her mouth tries to cover up. If you're paying attention, her posture, gestures, eye contact, or lack thereof, can speak volumes. Take Michael, 57, who had been married for 20 years. For months he noticed that whenever he would bring up any concern, his wife would avoid eye contact. At first, he thought it was just a coincidence, but it started to happen more frequently. When he asked about her late nights, when he asked about a strange message on her phone, and even when they were just talking about day-to-day things. She would look down, shift her gaze, or turn her body away from him as if she was subconsciously distancing herself. But it wasn't just the eye contact. Michael also noticed how her body language became rigid whenever he asked certain questions. Instead of the relaxed posture she used to have when they were comfortable together, her body would become stiff, like she was bracing herself for confrontation. When she did respond, her answers were often short, and she would quickly change the subject, diverting the conversation to something trivial. The more Michael pushed for answers, the more her body seemed to recoil, giving him the distinct feeling that she was hiding something. Here's the thing. When a woman is hiding something as big as infidelity, her body can't lie. Humans are wired to unconsciously react to stress or guilt, and when she's keeping a secret, her body will betray her. Shifting her gaze, avoiding your eyes, or even crossing her arms can all be signs of discomfort and defensiveness. These are the physical signs of a woman who knows she's lying but doesn't want to admit it. The most revealing moments often happen when she's not speaking. What she does when she's not talking can tell you everything. If she suddenly starts to fidget or look away during certain conversations, or if she seems excessively guarded or closed off, it's time to pay attention. These are classic signs that her mind and heart are no longer aligned with her words. See you in the next video.